Hey everyone, this is Jun,
And I'm Daniel.
and we are Korean.
American.
Week 2 of the June 1st movement.
How's it feel to be named first?
I heard first is the worst, second is the best,
What's the ending?
and third is the hairiest.
The one with the hairy chest.
Ah, the one with the hairy chest.
But you and I heard in Korea, first is always the best.
First is always the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else is there?
What do you mean?
What else is there than number one?
Oh, yeah. Well, June, today I thought we could do a media review.
A media review?
Yeah. Have you heard of the movie Decision to Leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, very famous.
Yeah.
But this version, no spoilers, it's the story of a Korean American family who, in the heart of COVID, the global pandemic, decided to move as a family of 5 to their motherland and move to Korea, where they would spend 5 beautiful years getting to know their motherland, grow as a family, even add a new member to their family. And ultimately, originally coming for 2 years was the plan, but staying for 5, and it went by much quicker than I realized. But ultimately, it's been a hard decision to make, but we have decided that this chapter in Korea will be ending this coming summer in just a few months. And yeah, we will be moving back to the States, back where we moved from, planning mid-July. So yeah, really less than 3 months away at this point because, we didn't do it for the last recording, but as of recording today, it's April 26th. So, we had decided a few months ago now. So we decided probably, I think it was December of 2025. But it wasn't like confirmed, I think, until end of January. But yeah, we've been sitting on this for a few months. We just started telling people, and now it's podcast official that we'll be ending this chapter in Korea, June.
How do you feel? Do you have a definite date now?
No, we haven't booked any plane tickets or anything, but I think end of March was when it felt like point of no return, because that's when our kids, we had to basically confirm and put a deposit down for next year's school. And, even at this point, if we decided to stay, maybe we could get back in or whatever. But that was kind of the first official, now it's real. Like we can't just stay without doing anything and trying to, go back and change things. So I feel bittersweet for sure. I think, in a sense, I remember thinking about moving from the US to Korea, and it felt like the craziest thing to do, right? Like, what? Like, you've never lived there, you don't speak the language, you're not citizens. Like, how's that going to work? But in a weird way, it feels even crazier to move back now. It just seems like there's so much uncertainty in the world, in the US. Korea, even though I know I'm not like native, I still feel fairly comfortable, right? And our kids are very well established. They have friends, and they're all, I would even say, thriving. Like, they're all doing very well. School, socially, academically, everything. And so it just feels like almost even crazier going back. But at the same time, yeah, it feels right. And at the end of the day, I think the decision was kind of simple. It basically came from, because of where our kids are in their, I guess, school life. I think as they're transitioning from elementary to middle school, etc., now feels like the right time to move back. And if we didn't do it now, maybe there could be a window in 3 years when our oldest goes into high school. But after that, like, we're just going to stay here for the entirety of our kids' schooling, right? Because we don't want to have, we want them to have a relatively stable, schooling and childhood. So in that sense, you know, my wife and I were like, are we really going to live here 15 more years? Because our youngest is 3. And so by the time they graduated high school, it'd be 18. It's like, oh, I can't see myself living my entire adult life in Korea from this point on, right? And so then it was like, well, is it now or is it in 3 years? And ultimately we decided, yeah, we could wait 3 years with more information, see how things are. But also it's more like, if we know we're going to move back eventually, then at this point, I think sooner is better. Yeah. So I won't, you know, there's so many more things we considered, right? Our youngest child, who's 3 now, is perfectly fluent in Korean. I suspect she will know no Korean in a few years, because that's just how things go if you don't get it at home. And so it's, oh, maybe we wait a few years for her Korean to really solidify. And at the end of the day, right, like most decisions in life, there's all these trade-offs. There's pros and cons one way or the other. But yeah, it just came down to like, we're not going to live here forever. So then why wait? And so yeah, that's it. We still have so many logistics to do, so many things to take care of. It's almost overwhelming. But at the same time, yeah, we need to move back this summer before the US school year starts in August. So we need to be back at least a month before that. Yeah.
I always knew that there was a deadline and you keep pushing it back, right? But I knew that it's going to happen someday.
You did?
Yeah.
So you never thought you could live 15 more years here?
Because when you told me like the biggest reason is like education for your kids that goes past elementary school, I thought that was a very reasonable reason to move back. And so I thought you would always make the most reasonable decision. And so I didn't think that you would stay longer than that. Yeah. I would have been very, very surprised if you did.
Yeah. In a sense, I mean, the more surprising thing might be like how we've stayed here 5 years already, right? Because the intention was 2 years, then one more, then one more.
How many months in were you when we first met?
Oh, interesting. Our origin story.
Yeah.
Do you remember around when we met? Because I moved July 2021. And then I know things wound down spring 2023. And I think that was just about the 1 year mark. So I think I would guess
6 months in.
Yeah, I'll guess like March, April 2022 is when we first met. So yeah, we would have been like 9 months into Korea.
9 months.
Oh my God. Kind of crazy.
9 months in Korea, Daniel, and 5 years in Korea, Daniel must have been very different.
Well, what do you think? You probably more than just a handful of friends that we have seen me the whole way.
I've seen the different phases.
Yeah.
Of like, you just like, in the very early phases, I think it was like 100% just pure curiosity, right? Like you as an observer of the country, and that's how like this whole podcast idea started.
Totally.
Because you started asking questions about Korea during lunchtime, and I answered them, and we thought that was very interesting.
Specifically, it was the Taiwan stories that like.
Yeah.
That blew my mind. Like, there's so much history that you shared that I had no awareness of. Yeah. I was like, dang, that's crazy. Yeah.
And then there was a phase of like you like easing. It felt like you were more easing into society a little bit more. Like, I remember the first time that you were mind blown when you knew how to take the bus from the Gangnam-yeok to the office.
Yeah. I had never taken the bus before.
Yeah. And I felt like that was like an epiphany moment for you of like easing into society a little bit more. Cause like that's what like normal office workers do.
The bus felt so intimidating to me. Yeah. Right? Compared to the subway. Yeah. It's like so synchronistic, you know, like you get on. Yeah. The driver's looking at you. You have to do something. There might be people behind you. Like it's so intimidating. Wow. Compared to the subway for me.
To think about that, Daniel. Yeah. Wow. And then there was a phase where I think you were a little bit like let down, or you were a bit disappointed about the way that things work here. And I think it it's because you had more understanding of how things work, right? And then there was a phase where you sort of overcame. I don't know if you overcame 100%, but like you made peace with it at
I
least.
definitely overcame.
Yeah. So there were the phases of Daniel.
Can I ask, what was your first impression of me? I remember at that Starbucks, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, do you remember anything from that meeting?
Ah. Well, my first impression of you was through Zoom.
Oh, did we have a lot of Zoom talks?
No, I think we had one Zoom talk before we met.
Okay.
So that was my very, very first impression of you.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't know how American you were.
Uh-huh.
Just because I just knew your name and I
Yeah.
knew that you were a Kim. So I knew you were either Korean American or like 1.5
that's
Gen
so
or
interesting.
maybe
Yeah.
some Korean guy who just had the name Daniel.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how American
So
you were.
interesting.
And I still didn't know how American you were just by Zooming with you or
Yeah.
even meeting with you at Starbucks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So when did you realize how American I was?
I honestly started actually really, really realizing how American you were through the podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So even while we were working together, you didn't know?
I didn't know exactly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
mean,
so interesting.
I knew somewhat
Yeah.
that you're not like your typical Korean American that Koreans think of. Because I think most Koreans think of, when they think of Korean Americans, they think about the West Coast Korean Americans, right? And I didn't really have a concept or idea of like what a second gen Korean American who grew up in like Maryland would be like,
Yeah.
right? That was my first impression of someone like that.
To be clear, there are plenty of second-gen Korean Americans from the DC, Maryland, Virginia area that are super Korean, right?
Are they?
They are.
Yeah.
But I just was not one of them. But there are also plenty of people like me too. I want to be clear.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends don't speak Korean at home. Yeah.
I think you're the, can I say archetype? We're a new archetype for me. Because
interesting.
in school when I was studying in the States,
Yeah.
I knew Korean Americans who were like completely whitewashed, who like didn't even know how to say kimchi
Oh, yeah.
properly, or there were the Korean Americans who somehow like are very fluent in Korean even though they've never lived here.
Yeah. But I was somewhere in the middle.
You were somewhere in the middle. So you were like a new archetype for me.
I wonder if that was 9 months of me living here that like infiltrated some of that. But if actually, now that I think about it, to be honest, ever since I started not even dating, ever since I married my wife and we had kids, and I guess her parents were much more involved in kind of helping and being around.
Yeah.
And then because of that too, we visited Korea fairly regularly. I'd say every 2 years. I think I started to understand like Korean culture a bit more. Yeah. And, you know, reading Korean books to the kids, I started learning a little bit more Korean, stuff like that. Yeah. But before that, I would have been probably pretty squarely in the fully whitewashed.
Really?
Kimchi, like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I thought the more whitewashed Korean Americans are like that because like their parents were intentionally raising them that way for them to be more easily blend into society.
No,
But I didn't have an impression of that from your parents, from what I heard.
my parents, I think, are fairly traditional. They immigrated early, right? 75.
Yeah.
But I think I shared this story. Basically, my brother was a late speaker, very common for bilingual households.
Yeah.
But they didn't know that back then. So they freaked out. And
Yeah.
They like did everything they could to be English only at home. And so my brother, sister, and me being the youngest by 7 years, I was born into that environment. And again, because I'm the maknae, my brother, sister, they went to Korean school, all those things. I didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think because of that, the house was just an English-speaking house. Yeah.
And can I tell you, like, I sometimes sort of think about my childhood when I lived in the States for 2 years. and like how my parents, now thinking back, were so brave in doing that. Like I
Totally.
couldn't even imagine how they weren't like in the early 90s
Yeah.
when it was like there weren't even a lot of people actually like flying to the States, but like bringing the whole family, like setting up like where to live and like how we could go to school. And on top of that, like traveling with us every like vacation. And I think that's like insane to think about.
Yeah.
And I like sort of mirror that to your family right now. And I think I admire like your courage to come here to Korea and like setting up your life here and like figuring everything out. It's like it's like looking at my family.
But in reverse of it.
Yeah.
Now you made it awkward because I was gonna say what a blessing it is that your parents did that for you. Because now you can speak English fluently. You have a multicultural perspective.
Yeah.
But I can't say that because now I'm complimenting myself.
No, I'll say it. I'll say it for you. What a blessing, Daniel. I mean,
That was the intention.
that was the intention, and it
intention.
shaped me tremendously of like how I became the person that I am today, and like the way that I think, not only because of like the language, but the experiences that I had early on that day, those years.
Yeah.
And I think it would have made a huge impact to your family too, especially your kids. And I think they would grow up having a very unique perspective that people who only grew up in Korea or the States would never have. So I think that's a really big gift for your family. Yeah.
Again, only time will tell, but that is definitely my hope. Yeah, they would see the world.
It's inevitable though. Yeah.
Yeah. I had such a closed view of the world, right?
Yeah.
This very US centric, America number one, America the best. But I can honestly say almost every single one of those assumptions now, also in light of the, political world climate too. But I've walked back on, I think, almost all of them. There's a few I'll hold on to. Like, I love the American mindset with these few things, which as I think about, over the next few weeks and we record future topics, I'll bring these things up. But definitely for the vast majority of things, yeah, I cringe at how 2021 Daniel, I guess, thought about the world. And I think now I have a much more balanced perspective on things. So, yeah, I even more than my kids, actually, I didn't realize how much I would grow and benefit from this experience.
Yeah.
If I had to be completely honest, it was 100% really for the kids. I guess it was a bit of a family adventure too, because of COVID and all that. We were like, oh man, like life is short.
Yeah.
We got to get out of here, just like see the world. But yeah, what a blessing for myself, I have to say. And I do hope it will turn out that way for our kids.
Do you think you would ever like come back to visit? Like,
This is an interesting question. This is what I said. I don't know if I still believe this, but I said this verbatim to my wife a few months ago. I said, I don't think I ever care to visit anytime soon. Because the best things about Korea now for me are the daily life things, right? And I think visiting, you don't really get a sense of that, right? It's typically for tourist stuff or maybe see family. But the things I've come to love and appreciate the most are just daily life. Yeah. The security, the safety, the convenience. Those aren't necessarily things that I would travel here to experience again, right? Now, if you were to ask, could I see myself moving back here in the future? 100% I could see it.
Really?
Totally, yeah.
That is very surprising.
No.
After your kids, like, go on to study for college and
I am
stuff.
even open to,
retiring here?
No, a few years into our U.S. stay, if, like, things really aren't going well, if the whole family misses Korea, if they haven't made friends, right? If things just feel off, I'm completely open to moving back here.
Well, that is very surprising to me.
Yeah, I think to me, that just says how much we've come to appreciate the good things about Korea.
Wait, if you were to come back in, let's say, 5 years, where would you live?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
I think we would probably choose this area again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for the same reasons we chose this to begin with.
But
It's near the kids' school we want them to go to. Yeah.
but what if you were to come here after all of your kids graduate?
Yeah, so if we don't move here in the next few years, I think we'll probably, for the same reasons we're deciding to leave now, we want to have a relatively stable 10-year run for our kids to finish their schooling.
Yeah.
So, empty nesting or retirement time. Yeah, I could see us moving back to Korea. Personally, Busan's always appealed to me. Or if it were the Seoul, metropolitan area, it would be Seoul. Yeah, maybe specifically the Gwanghwamun area I really like.
Do you know that Nahuna is from Busan?
I did not know that. My spirit celebrity.
Yeah, do you have like a
Connection.
weird, I don't know, affinity towards Busan for some reason?
Man. No, I just love the vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like all the things I love about Seoul, but more laid back.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That's
Yeah,
true.
So. But yeah, it would be Seoul. I think.
Do you have a specific area that you really liked?
I said I did like the Gwanghwamun area. We had a really nice, I think, 4-week stay there one trip. It's very central, accessible, lots of culture stuff, and everything's just going on around there. But
Cool.
no, I mean, we'd have to think a lot more about that. And, there's so many factors that come into play in the next 10 years. Parents' health, our health, kids, where they're located, if they go to college, somewhere. But yeah, beyond that, like, I really hope now if our kids ever want to move or spend time or live in Korea, I think they would have a very comfortable time transitioning. And I think because of that, I think that is wide open for them as a possibility, and which I like. So
What is this is quickly becoming an interview format. But what is the one thing that you would do differently if you were to come back?
Oh, that is a very easy answer. Yeah. I think our leaving is almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because we came in with the mindset of, oh, we're only here temporarily for 2 years. And, 2 became 3 because 2 felt too short. 3 became 4. I forgot exactly why we didn't move back after 3, but for similar reasons, it's like, oh, like, kids are doing well, let's just do 1 more year. Honestly, 4 became 5 because we were a bit lazy. But also because Seoul, staying in Korea was such a good default, we didn't feel urgency. But ideally, we would have moved back after year 4. I still believe that would have been better than this year. But because of this like temporary visitor mentality, we never settled in. And we never did the things that would have enabled us to really integrate and feel, like it was a possibility that we could live here forever. Namely, things like, we never bought furniture, really. Like, all our furniture is the cheapest possible furniture. It's like, why get nice furniture if we're leaving in 2 years, right? And 2 became 3, became 4, became 5.
Yeah.
If we could go back in time and like do an interior update, find a home we really liked, and invest in nice furniture, and like even decorating the walls, right? Like, we didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
It would have just felt so different in a sense, right? If we learned the language, personally, if I really dove in, took some language classes, made a real concerted effort to learn the language, like if I had my level of fluency today, 4 years ago even, I feel like life would have been so different. Like, I might be a native speaker by now, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's really a possibility, but just zero investment. There was no point to doing it. And then the third is work, right? Like, if I'll see a fourth too, but the third is work. Like, I left our previous company 2.5 years ago now. Crazy.
That's crazy.
And at the time, it was like, oh, we might move back in 6 months. What's the point of getting a job? And then that became 1.5 years. Then it became 2.5.
Yeah.
It's just like, but if I had found a job I loved, dived into it, formed work relationships, seen career success, whatever it might be, again, totally different story staying here. And then the final one was community, right? Just whether we intended or not, when you have this mindset of we're just here temporarily, it's going to affect your relationships. It's going to be hard to really make and find meaningful ones, to invest in them, and to see this as like lifelong thing that you're building
Mm-hmm.
rather than just like a temporary thing that we're both doing for convenience, let's say. So I think across those four things, if I could go back in time, I think after the 2-year mark, it made sense. But after that, really thinking, oh, let's like really invest and see if this is something we can do long term.
Mm-hmm.
I would have done that differently for sure.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think it would have changed so much. Yeah.
Mm. It would be awkward to see a very fluent Korean speaking Daniel. Do you think we would ever just speak in Korean if you were to be more fluent? No, right?
I think only because knowing how good your English is, no.
Mm-hmm.
But if you, let's say in the next 5 years, forget your English
Mm-hmm.
and my Korean continues to improve,
Yeah.
I think at the point where my Korean's better than your English
Mm.
might never happen.
Yeah.
But then it would feel natural, I think.
Mm.
Yeah. But okay, I will say to my credit, my Korean's not good enough where I'm not limited necessarily, I think, maybe the other party is being nice, by accent.
Mhm.
It's just vocabulary.
Yeah.
Like, because at some point I reach a word I don't say,
Yeah.
and then I say, 벌써 알고 있었는데 저는 교포이고 한국말 잘 못해요.
Yeah.
Right? It comes out.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're like, I didn't know until now. Like, but now I can tell. As soon as you say it, I can't unhear it now.
Mm.
And also when I'm talking with other Koreans, sometimes there's this point where I reach the limits of my Korean and I'm just ready to switch over to English because I know they can speak English better than my Korean. It's very awkward.
Yeah.
Like that transition when you're talking in Korean.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's awkward, but it's very awkward.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, you must know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for those reasons, I think there could be some world. I think it's highly unlikely my Korean would continue to improve. But yeah,
Would you ever take Korean lessons after you move back?
I don't think so. Yeah. The main reason would be so that we could try to keep the Korean skills of our youngest two kids going. But my wife's Korean's quite good, and even she doesn't commit to speaking Korean to them.
Yeah, your wife, I bet most Koreans couldn't tell that she's
Especially
Korean
now.
American. Yeah.
I think when she first moved, there were serious gaps, but now I think she can get by pretty well.
Yeah.
But I think that would be the main reason I'd want to continue Korean. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen. But
What would be one of the most memorable moments that you can think of here in Korea when you look back?
First of all,
Yeah.
this was not supposed to be an interview.
Yeah. But I think this
It's
is
naturally,
yeah.
it's natural. But just for the record, like I will be gathering, consolidating, and synthesizing my thoughts over the coming weeks, and hopefully have a lot more to share with more structure in the future. But since you asked, there's a few that come to mind, but this one will always be very clear to me. It was, I think, the first month after moving here. Our kids had, basically every day after school, the kids would all pile off the bus, and maybe there were like 4 or 5 sets of kids, like 4 or 5 families worth of kids. And every day, if the weather permitted, we'd just all go to the nearby Pyeonuijeom, get ice cream, and just enjoy ice cream. And, the sun's in the background, the weather's nice. It was hot. It was August
Yeah.
or September, but it was still pretty nice weather. And I just remember feeling like it feels so nice to be here. And just having new experiences, but also the kids had made some friends. Honestly, I would say I felt some Jeong. Like there was like a camaraderie in this group
Yeah.
that I was like, oh wow, it feels like we're close already, right? And it really felt like, oh my gosh, like these are meaningful relationships. Sad to say whether it was us or them, people leaving, people moving, dynamics changing, right?
Yeah.
I'd say that feeling lasted maybe a year or two. But then, for the past 3 years, I feel like that has not been there as much. But yeah, that I will never forget that moment. Just like eating Pyeonuijeom ice cream, maybe, 8 parents and like 10 kids just running around.
It was not just your family.
No. It was like all the
yeah.
parents and the kids, just like the kids were playing, eating ice cream, running around, being kids. and the parents were just kind of watching them, enjoying our ice creams. But there was that there was still that Jeong feeling. Well, whoever pulled out the wet wipes first, everyone would use them, right? Or whoever started the trash bag first would gather all the trash for everyone together, and it just felt so natural. Yeah, there's a lot of other moments that stand out, but I guess I'll just stop there for now.
Yeah. Since this episode's not going to be that long.
Partially logistically, also.
Yeah.
Jun has a hard stop.
Oh, yeah.
In 10 minutes.
But I also wanted to share with the audience of how you think about how this podcast is going to end.
We should both share about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have... We never actually discussed this.
Oh, wow. Let's have it live on air. Let me lead with, I would love to be able to keep doing it in some form or fashion. I think the advantages of me being in the US are American culture is going to be, even more front and center, and I'll be more fully Americanized again in a sense. But I think the main dynamic of this was me experiencing Korean culture through a Korean American lens. And obviously that's going to be missing, right? So I think that's going to make it hard to continue.
Yeah.
And just logistically, the timing of it with the time zones is very difficult, as well as we've tried video episodes before over Zoom, and it's just not the same.
It isn't.
There's a delay, weird latency. It's us taking turns talking rather than actually having a conversation.
Yeah.
And so for those reasons, I think it's going to be hard to continue. But again, I'd love to see what we can do to keep it going. I've also made it very clear to you, if there were another American host or whatever you want to do with this podcast moving forward, I think you have full permission and liberty and my blessing to do. So I'd love to see it continue, because I think the mission behind what this podcast is doing, broadening perspective, sharing culture, expanding both Korean and American perspectives, I think. And as our listeners have told us, right, it's not just Korean or American. It's anyone interested in culture and seeing life through different lenses. I think, people love our podcast because of that. Yeah, I would love to see it continue in some shape or form. But personally, I think it's going to be very difficult, sadly.
I see.
How about you? Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised that you would even think of, in whatever format you would like to continue this. Personally, I do not have a strong dedication to continue this if it weren't a thing between me and you specifically. And I wouldn't mind having an indefinite break either. But I also wouldn't mind if I also would love to figure out a way to just do it between me and you if we can, even if the cadence is very long, or maybe we have to overcome the time zones. But yeah, I can't ever see myself doing it alone or with some other person.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because I think
I feel like I'm quite replaceable, though.
Just
find a random white dude.
I mean, you keep saying that, but I think you bring a very unique color to the podcast that not only me but the audience really enjoy. And I know that maybe if we find someone else, they would bring some other unique value into it.
For sure, yeah.
But see, I don't have that much of a devoted dedication to find someone like that. Yeah. I
always thought you were the unicorn in the sense that your English is very good, but your mind is still very Korean.
Yeah.
In fact, Jun, the first time, looping back to an earlier question, when did I realize how Korean you were?
Yeah.
It's when we started, I think, having our first guest episode, and we wanted to rate ourselves on the Korean American scale.
Oh, and I said 2.
And we said 2.
Yeah.
I was like, you are not a 2. There's no way.
Yeah.
But then ever since you said that, I've thought about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, Jun actually is quite Korean
Yeah, I
in
am
how
very-
he thinks.
Yeah.
It's because me as a Gyopo, I think every time I meet a Korean looking person who speaks English well,
Yeah.
I immediately think they're Gyopo.
Yeah.
So I just assume that you think like me.
Yeah.
But then over the, years now of knowing you, it's become obvious that you think very differently.
Yeah. And I think I have a certain vibe,
Yeah, a Gyopo vibe.
a Gyopo vibe. And I realized this because I start making new relationships in my new work.
Uh-huh.
And without exception,
Yeah.
they all assume that I'm Korean American. Although I speak 100% Korean to them.
Isn't it just the language? You think it's also more than that?
I think it's because of the fact
Oh,
that...
you speak 100% Korean to them?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I think I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they know I do this podcast.
Uh-huh.
And so they think naturally I'm a Gyopo.
Oh, interesting.
And they all think that I have American citizenship for some reason. Like, no.
You're
I'm
stuck
like
here.
100% Korean.
I'm saying that in jest, okay? You're not stuck here. You have the privilege of living here.
You know what I feel like? I feel like sometimes I'm more Korean than other Korean people.
No. That's your
In some way.
Kkondae, that's your Kkondae side, right?
That's my Kkondae.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, these young Koreans these days.
Yeah.
In that sense, I think you are. And in that sense, I could see myself even being more Korean from that lens, right? The older Korean mentality.
I think I want to say because it's sometimes because of the fact that I don't have just like a blinded fantasy towards American culture.
That for sure, yeah.
And sometimes I think certain Korean people just think that by default, everything from America is more advanced and better. And I tend to intentionally move away from that. Not only intentionally, but because I think I have a slightly better understanding about both cultures. And so I sometimes want to just appreciate this culture more.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I feel like I'm more Korean.
I will say that was one of the things you always led with.
Yeah.
Like the reason why you love having this podcast is it gives you a platform to share your thoughts.
Yeah.
And specifically helping Koreans
Yeah.
not blindly assume everything America's good, everything
Yes.
Korea's bad.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's very clearly resonated because a
Yeah.
lot of the comments are, say as much, right? They're like, oh, I love how Jun always has a balanced perspective, sees the good in Korea where I always just see the bad. So I think that's really come through. I'm not sure my side has come through. Like, I don't know how many Americans have a more grounded and realistic perspective on modern Korea because of this podcast. But I'd like to think some do.
Yeah. I always wanted to balance myself to not being blindly like Korea is bad, America is good, or the other way around.
Sure, yeah.
I think a lot of times I just like very clearly stated what I don't think is good about Korea either. But I just always wanted to be more like factual,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
In my personal standard. Yeah, we have to
Yeah, we have to go. I'll, again, this is not the end of my reflections. In fact, you'll probably get more than you would like in the next few episodes. Listeners might be sick of my, I guess, reflections and thoughts on Korea, but I will 100% say, Jun, this podcast has made my time in Korea more meaningful and fulfilling. I think being able to have someone to talk through, having a podcast where I can actually share the thoughts and observations I have just has made my time more alive and again much more meaningful. So I'm super grateful for this podcast and yeah, super grateful for you and your friendship. So
me too. This just feels like the last episode, but it's not.
No. There will be many more tears when it's the actual last episode. But yeah.
I think I don't think I've ever could have imagined myself doing a podcast, and especially doing it in English.
Is it 3 years? It will be. Yeah,
Almost.
by the summer it'll be 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't think I could have done it like this diligently or with joy if it wasn't with you. I don't know why I keep on like thinking that like you're very irreplaceable, which I think is actually true. It genuinely didn't feel like work at all. I mean, it did feel like work when we're editing.
Sometimes it felt like work, but most of the time
especially when we're recording, it was like always very enjoyable and it's something I always look forward to. Yeah.
So yeah, this is not the last episode, but I will say I feel like the timer has started in a sense. Probably maybe 6 more episodes after this.
That's a lot.
At most.
Yeah.
Maybe realistically.
Yeah.
4. I think the hard part will be there's so many more episodes I wanted to do. And we're obviously clearly not going to get to do them. I think that makes me sad because I think there's a lot of meaningful topics I really wanted to dive into. And again, use this platform to share different stories and broaden people's perspectives, including my own. Like there's so much I feel like I still don't know about Korea. That one's going to be sad for me.
Yeah.
I think especially, we'll probably name some topics in the future, but that's life. I think you never know when the last time you'll record a podcast episode is, June.
Also, I know that we both made our statements of how we think about the future of the podcast, but I would love to hear the audience if they have any idea of how they want to see this podcast evolve after Daniel's departure.
Yeah.
In any way. If
Please.
if there's like a really good idea that we can continue on this conversation, that would be great to hear. Yeah.
Well, since you said that, I'll also say this. Finances has never been a driving force for this podcast. If it were, we would be earning like 25 cents an hour. However, through the generous support of, our Patreons as well as Instagram and YouTube, giving us some money for the little ad revenue that we brought them.
Yeah.
We've banked the non-trivial amount of money that we've never spent.
Yeah.
And I think we were both aligned. We would love to figure out some way to donate this or to give it to some organization or cause. So yeah, please write in, comment, suggest nonprofits or other ways that we can put our, some thousands of dollars to good use.
Yeah.
We would love to make that more meaningful. Why is that? What's funny?
I mean, I think I'm just
how
imagining...
many hours we poured in for...
No, I'm just imagining people realizing how little the amount that we accumulated is.
Let this be a learning experience. Anyone out there who's trying to make money through a podcast, do not do it. However, if you want to have good times, make good memories, and also share your stories, by all means, 100% to your podcast.
100%.
We will listen. Please share other podcasts that our listeners enjoy.
Yeah.
I would love to have more podcasts to listen to. All right. With that, I think that's the end of this very short episode.
That's the beginning of the end.
Beginning of the end.
Yeah.
But every new beginning is some other beginning's end, June. So, yeah, let's conclude our media review of Decision to Leave by Daniel Kim and his family. Okay.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you.
Bye.
This is not the end. Bye. Yet.
Yes. Oh. That's it. Do you think that was worth it on its own? I'm getting emotional. This is ridiculous. I'm actually genuinely surprised. Because I was going to keep it so light and funny.
I knew.
No, I did. I really did. I thought when we recorded, seriously, but growing as a fan. Oh my god. Stupid.
We might not get through this.
Now I have Sankapur.
Oh, can you feel it?
Can you see it?
Yeah.
It looks really weird, right? It feels weird.